My name is Emily Parker, and I live in a small town called Maple Creek, somewhere between the woods and the whisper of the river that never stops flowing. People here know everything about everyone, or at least they think they do. 3 years ago, I was known as Emily and Daniel, not just Emily. We were that kind of couple, the kind people talked about with soft smiles, saying they're made for each other, and I believed that too. Because Daniel wasn't just my husband. He was my world. Daniel and I met in college. He was the quiet one who never raised his hand, and I was the girl who spoke too much. He used to smile every time I got into debates with professors, and when I caught him once, he just said, "You argue like you're fighting for the truth." And I said, "Maybe I am." That was how it started, in a library that smelled like old pages and new dreams. We married young. Too young, some said. But when love feels that real, that urgent, you don't wait for the world's permission. We moved into a little white house at the edge of town. Mornings smelled like coffee and fresh paint, and nights were laughter, whispers, and promises. Daniel was an architect, always sketching ideas on napkins. He dreamed of building something beautiful, something lasting. And I taught art at the local school. Our lives were simple, but full. It was raining, hard enough to blur everything beyond the windshield. Daniel had gotten a call from his firm, something urgent about a project blueprint that needed to be dropped off downtown. I told him not to go. I remember holding his hand and saying, "It's just paper, Danny. It can wait till morning." He smiled that soft, stubborn smile and said, "You worry too much. I'll be back before midnight." He kissed my forehead and left. That was the last kiss he ever gave me. Around 1:20 a.m., there was a knock at my door. 2 police officers. Their eyes told me everything before their words could. Daniel's car had skidded off a bridge down into the river. They said the rain made the road slick. They said it was instant. They said there was no pain, but there was pain. Mine. The funeral was quiet. No open casket? They said the damage was too severe. I never saw his face again. Only a closed coffin and a photograph. The one where he was laughing, holding me during our trip to the lake. After that, Maple Creek stopped feeling like home. The air, the streets, the house, everything whispered his name. For months, I'd wake up reaching out to the empty side of the bed, thinking maybe it was all a nightmare. But the cold pillow always told the truth. Grief doesn't go away. It just learns how to hide behind routine. I learned to live with silence, like it was an old roommate I couldn't get rid of. Every morning, I'd walk to Bennett's Cafe, the same place Daniel and I used to go for coffee. I'd order his drink too, a double espresso, no sugar, and leave it across from me. Habit, maybe, or hope. Then one Sunday afternoon, everything changed. I was leaving the grocery store when I saw a man standing by the old clock tower near Main Street. He was wearing a faded gray jacket, Daniel's favorite kind, and his posture, the way he stood with one hand in his pocket. It was him. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. It felt like the world had stopped spinning. He turned his head, and I saw his face. The same eyes, the same jawline, but older. More tired, I dropped the grocery bag. Apples rolled across the pavement, but I didn't move. My voice trembled as I whispered, "Daniel." The man looked at me. Confusion flashed in his eyes. He blinked, stepped back slightly, and then said, "I'm sorry, ma'am." "Do I know you?" Those words shattered me more than his death ever did. Because it was him. I knew it in my bones. But he didn't know me. For days, I couldn't sleep. His face haunted me, not as a ghost, but as something real. I asked around town, described him to people at the cafe, at the gas station. One man said he'd seen someone who fit that description working at a mechanic shop on the other side of town. So one evening, I went there. And there he was, in grease-stained overalls, fixing a car, humming softly to himself. The tune. It was the same lullaby Daniel used to hum when he couldn't sleep. I stood there, frozen. He looked up and smiled. That same familiar, gentle smile. Then he said, "Can I help you, ma'am?" I felt tears rising. I wanted to scream, "It's me, Emily! It's your wife!" But the words wouldn't come. Instead, I asked, "What's your name?" He wiped his hands with a rag and said, David Harris. David Harris. Not Daniel Parker. Not my husband, but it was him. Everything about him. The scar above his eyebrow, the tiny freckle near his neck. All of it was Daniel. I left that place trembling, confused, and terrified. Was it possible? Could someone survive an accident like that? And forget everything? That night, I went home and opened the box of Daniel's things. His watch, his wallet, his wedding band. I clutched them close and whispered into the darkness, "If it's really you, please remember me." Over the next few days, I couldn't stay away. I found myself driving past that mechanic shop just to catch a glimpse. He looked happy, or at least peaceful. He laughed with coworkers, wiped oil from his hands, lived as if he'd never known me. But fate has a way of pushing two hearts together, again and again. One evening, the rain returned, just like that night 3 years ago. He was closing up the shop when I gathered the courage to walk in. My hands were shaking. He looked up and said, "You again. You really look like you've seen a ghost." I smiled weakly. "Maybe I have." He chuckled, unaware of the storm inside me. Then, without thinking, I pulled out the old locket I always wore, the one with our wedding photo inside. I held it out to him. "Does this look familiar to you?" He took it gently, studied it for a long time. And then his expression changed. His smile faded. He touched his temple, wincing slightly as if something was breaking through the fog of his mind. I don't know, that's me, isn't it?" Tears blurred my vision. "Yes, it's you, Daniel." He stared at me, lost between confusion and pain. The rain outside grew louder, thunder rolling over the sky. He whispered, almost afraid of his own voice. My name isn't David?" I took a shaky step closer. "Your name is Daniel Parker, and I'm your wife." Silence. Only the sound of rain hitting the tin roof. He looked at me, eyes wide, heart racing, and then whispered, "Emily." That was the first time in 3 years someone called my name like that, and just like that, I knew it was him. Emily. The way he said my name, it wasn't just a sound, it was a memory trying to breathe again. For a few seconds, I couldn't speak. The shop lights flickered, the rain drummed on the roof, and Daniel, or David, looked at me like someone waking up from a dream he couldn't quite remember. I wanted to rush into his arms, but fear held me still. What if it wasn't real? What if tomorrow he forgot again? He touched his forehead, still frowning. I don't understand. I don't remember you, but something feels familiar. My tears slipped out before I could stop them. "It's okay," I whispered. "You don't have to remember everything tonight." He hesitated, looking lost, like a man who'd forgotten the meaning of home. The storm outside was growing worse, so I said softly, "Come with me, Daniel, please, just for tonight." He didn't move at first. Then, slowly, he nodded. "Okay." We walked out into the rain together. It felt like time itself was watching us. The same rain that once took him away was now bringing him back to me. The drive home was silent. He stared out the window, his fingers tracing the glass while I kept glancing at him, memorizing every breath. He was alive. He was right there. But the space between us was filled with 3 years of silence and 1,000 unspoken questions. When we reached the house, he looked around with cautious eyes. "This place," he murmured. "You used to live here," I said softly. "We used to live here." He stepped inside slowly, glancing at the framed photographs on the walls. The wedding picture, the road trip photo, the silly one of him with paint on his nose. His hand trembled as he touched the edge of one frame. "That's me," he said. "Yes," I whispered, "and that's you." He nodded, eyes wide. "It feels familiar, but it's like I'm remembering someone else's life." I wanted to tell him everything, but instead I made him some tea just how he used to like it. 2 spoons of sugar. When I handed him the cup, he smiled faintly. "I don't take sugar," he said. "Yes, you do," I replied gently. "You always did?" He took a sip, paused, and then whispered, almost to himself, "It tastes right." Something inside me broke. Not from pain, but from the fragile beauty of that moment, the proof that love, somehow, was still buried in him. He stayed that night in the guest room. I lay awake in mine, listening to the rhythm of his breathing through the thin wall. For the first time in years, I didn't feel alone, even if he didn't remember me. He was here. The next morning, he was already up, standing in the kitchen, staring at the old sketchbook on the counter. Daniel's sketchbook. He flipped through it, his fingers tracing the faded pencil lines. "I drew these," he said quietly. "Yes," I replied. "You were an architect." He looked up, searching my face. "I keep getting flashes. A bridge, water, headlights, then nothing." My heart tightened. "That was the night you had the accident." He froze. "I died." "Didn't I?" I swallowed hard. "They said you did. But maybe God gave me one more chance to find you." He turned away, gripping the counter. "I don't know who I am anymore." I stepped closer, placed my hand on his shoulder. "You're Daniel Parker. You loved building things. You loved old movies and bad coffee. You loved me." He looked at me again, his eyes soft but uncertain. "I want to remember," he said. "Then stay," I whispered. "Let me help you." Days turned into weeks. He stayed. We spent hours together, walking through the park, cooking dinner, listening to the songs we once danced to. Sometimes, when a certain melody played, I'd see a flicker of recognition in his eyes. Other times, he'd laugh at my stories, not realizing they were memories we shared. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the trees, I took him to the lake, the place where he'd first told me he loved me. He stood there silently, looking at the water glistening under the orange sky. "I've been here before," he murmured. "Yes," I said. "You proposed to me right here." He turned slowly toward me. "Emily." His voice cracked. Tears filled his eyes. "I see it. I see you. I remember." I stepped closer, afraid to breathe. He cupped my face in his hands, the same touch I thought I'd never feel again. "I remember the rain. The ring. You were wearing that red dress. I said I'd love you until the world stopped turning." A sob broke out of me. "You kept your promise," I whispered. He smiled through tears. "So did you." We stood there, holding each other as the evening breeze wrapped around us, carrying the scent of rain and memories. Later that night, sitting by the fireplace, he asked me quietly, "Do you ever wonder why things happen this way?" I nodded. Every day, he took my hand. Maybe some stories aren't meant to end where we think they do. Maybe love doesn't let go, even when everything else does. I rested my head on his shoulder, listening to the heartbeat I thought I'd lost forever. And in that moment, I realized this wasn't a miracle of fate. It was the stubbornness of love refusing to die. Some people said I was foolish for taking him back, for loving a man who didn't remember me for so long. But love isn't about memory, it's about soul, and Daniel was my first and last love. As I turned off the light, he looked at me and said softly, "Emily, I don't remember every detail, but when I look at you, I feel home." I smiled through tears. That's all that matters. And that night, for the first time in 3 years, I slept beside my husband again. Not the man he used to be, but the man he'd become, still mine, still here, still love, because real love doesn't end with death. Sometimes, it finds its way back.